Welcome back to Beyond the Bottom Line. I'm your host, Bert Miller, and we have a first for Beyond the Bottom Line. Now, we've had great guests over the last couple of seasons. We had the person who invented the aesthetic use of Botox. We've had the head, the executive in the HR space for Coca-Cola, one of the most iconic brands in the world. We've had a master negotiator, FBI hostage, very, very famous Christopher Voss. We've had the CEO of Hostess, who led the organization out of bankruptcy to a recent sale with J.M. Smucker just recently. And we've had the CEO of Riddell, who's creating technology for football equipment that keep our people safe in the game of football. So very interesting guests over the last couple of seasons, but this is a first. Today, I have the CEO, Alex Guy of the AirWater Company, and I bring it up because the reason it's a first is because today, you, myself, and the rest of us get source of water from two different sources, and that is the ground and the sea. Well, Alex is the founder of the AirWater Company that creates a third source, and that is the air, where we take thin air and turn it into high-quality drinking water. And that's my guest today. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bert. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So, Alex, I've had some amazing guests, but this is something that we have the potential with the AirWater Company and what you've founded to really shift and create something for the world. And so, going back, what led you? When I look at your background, I'd just like to understand better how you got to the point where you wanted to create this technology of creating air to water.
Yeah, sure. So when I came out of university, I followed kind of a well-trodden path for university graduates in the UK. I went to London, started in finance, and was there for a good 3 or 4 years. And then I had the opportunity to move to the Middle East. In the Middle East, and then cutting a very long story short, had an opportunity to work with an air-to-water company who were coming out of the UK. And then from that, started to work with a number of partners in the Middle East to essentially try and design and build a 1,000 litre a day air-to-water unit. And the basic thesis was we wanted to reduce the cost of transporting bottled water for frontline military personnel and for humanitarian relief. And that was a path that we went down for 2 years. During that period, we saw that there was a lot of pressure on consumers to start reducing the amount of plastic bottles that they were using, single-use plastics. So we saw an opportunity to kind of pivot from that military and that humanitarian aspect into building a portfolio of consumer products.
Interesting. So now you were in finance and you had an opportunity to work in the air to water. And so as you went through that process, when did you decide to give your full attention to this and say, I'm all in?
So it was over a period of time, but it became clear from kind of 2019 onwards that big pressure on the environment, when it was kind of COVID was a big catalyst for it, but how we can make the environment better, and there was more emphasis on climate change, but then ultimately water, the source of water that we're using. And as you referred to at the beginning, there's only two sources of water. There's groundwater, and we know we can't just keep extracting more and more water from the ground. So there's desalination water, which is created on the coast, and then you have the traditional transportation and logistics of moving that water to where it's required. But air to water is all about taking that source of water to where it's needed, and then delivering however much water is needed in the quality that it's needed in the quantity that it's needed.
So there's other companies trying to do the same thing. And you're really at the forefront essentially, but why is AirWater Company a little different than a couple of the others?
Sure. So what we've tried to do is we've tried to offer end users a total solution, and that's meant designing and building a portfolio of air-to-water products for an indoor and an outdoor environment, from a micro level of kind of 2 litres a day, if you think of an espresso machine on your kitchen worktop counter, right the way through to 3,000 litres a day outdoor that can be scaled accordingly to how much water that you need in a given location.
Yeah, and so the cost per liter is affordable?
Correct, yeah. So that's what took us such a long time to really drive down that cost per litre. Because when you talk to people about air to water, everyone's really interested how you can extract humidity from the air and ultimately produce filtered, high quality drinking water from that. And the questions that follow are, what's different to dehumidification? But then ultimately, how much power does it use? Does it work in a range of environments? And that's what's taken us, it's been a long journey to get to where we are now. But delivering a portfolio of products where ultimately you're offering water at 3 to 4 cents a litre.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. And you kicked us off in the Middle East. I mean, if you can create water in the Middle East at a desert, we can create it in pretty much anywhere, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so I think very, very broadly, we've looked at anywhere around the equator as our potential target market. We've trialed and tested, and we're now building a consumer business in the Middle East in challenging conditions. It's obviously a very, very dry heat, but desert conditions, very cold at night. So getting that technology right in a range of conditions and in a range of environments, it's what we've worked hard on over the last 5 or 6 years. We're now in a position where we want to take our technology out of the Middle East to a consumer market here in the US.
Yeah, so when you think about doing that, you're going to build your team. So building your team, not only from a consumer perspective, but from your overall organization as you build your roster, what is the mission or North Star that AirWater company kind of subscribes to?
So we want to be the most sustainable source of water in the world. That is our North Star, and that's what everyone on the team is striving towards. There's a big responsibility that comes with that. So we've started delivering water from everywhere from schools and hotels, which are obviously under pressure to reduce that consumption of single-use plastics, through to remote areas where they struggle to get water and they have very poor sources of water. So we've gone into those remote locations, and we've started creating water from humidity in the air. So taking that source of water, and this is where we can have a big impact on humanity. But with that comes great responsibility. If you're replacing a source of water that they're currently using with our technology, there can be no downtime for water. So there's a huge responsibility that comes with that as well.
What are some of the challenges? So let's talk about remote areas, and let's pick Africa, South Africa, wherever. What are some of the challenges for AWC, called AirWater Company? What are the challenges to get that water into the community?
Yeah, so it comes down to the availability of power. So all of our technology is plug and play. So in the Middle East, in the US, in Europe, there's ample power sources. There's a multitude of power sources. But in those remote areas, power sources can often be diesel generators. It can be mains power, which is not very reliable. So that's been a big challenge for us in terms of delivering a quality of water and a consistency of water when those power solutions are not readily available.
Right, and so as you go forth, what type of solutions may we look forward to maybe offset some of that?
Yeah, so what we're working hard on is a solar solution, and we've started looking at a hydrogen solution as well for those remote villages. And remote towns, just remote locations in general. And I think when you get that solar offering right, and we're very close to doing that, we can start creating water totally off-grid, totally sustainably. And I think with that, you can develop a huge amount around water.
Well, when I think of a couple others that have tried this, I mean, what's so unique to AirWater Company is you don't have to run piping. You don't have to create a large area of construction. You're really taking the source of the water to the consumer. I mean, you mentioned like a coffee maker, a latte maker. I mean, this will be a 5-liter unit just sitting on a counter that would deliver water into a kitchen.
For a lot of end users is the main driver. For consumers here in the US and in the Middle East, it's that convenience of having water delivered in your kitchen or in your utility room every day. But ultimately, taking the source of water to where it's required is the big differentiator between us and other water companies. So most water companies are constrained by the geography of their water. We don't have that constraint. We can take that source of water to where it's needed. And if we are transporting the water, we're trying to take out all of that traditional infrastructure and distribution costs you usually associate with water.
Well, it's interesting because one of the problems that you solve is the scarcity of water. Obviously, the continuous use of groundwater is not sustainable. Not everybody has a sea around them, and the desalination is expensive and certainly not good for the environment as well. So the main attribute is we're taking high quality drinking water and getting it to people so they can consume it. The byproduct of that, I think, is the fact, whether it be a crisis from a hurricane or any other natural disaster, is you can take the water right to the people and the source of the problem, or to the consumer in their homes, and you reduce plastic. I mean, we hear people talk about plastic anywhere. Certainly not the biggest driver, but certainly a huge byproduct benefit of being able to take high quality drinking water to a consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of that disaster relief, rather than the usual response, which is air freight, crates of bottled water, the expense of doing that, all single use, and then you have the plastic waste. If you could ship air-to-water units instead, deliver them right where they're needed, they can produce water 24 hours a day for as long as is required. So I think that will totally disrupt how we react to natural disasters, getting water to key locations after natural disasters. I think air-to-water will be a major driver of that going forward. But ultimately, for consumers, it comes down to convenience, and it comes down to the environmental impact of reducing your consumption of plastic bottled water.
Right. Earlier on you did, and I'm going to come back to it because I think it's an important point. As you scale this and as people start to buy into it and it builds credibility, as we go to the masses, there is a responsibility that this technology, certainly you have to maintain, right? So walk through some of the responsibilities and why it's important that it's done the right way.
Sure. So we've tried to make our technology as easy to operate, easy to service as possible. So we've stripped it back to really all that is required is changing the filters 4 times a year. Our units then have a lifespan of almost 10 years.
All right, so you mentioned earlier you're coming to the United States. So what are some of the challenges to that, or what regulations do we need to overcome to bring AirWater Company to the United States?
Yeah, sure. And this is something we're really excited by. So as I've said, we've trialed and we've demonstrated our technology in the UAE and predominantly in the Middle East, and we have done a number of projects in Southeast Asia and Africa as well. What we want to do now is scale it into the US. And I think we can address a big problem here in the US. The water scarcity is clearly widely covered now in the media. We can offer a new source of water to US consumers. And that's really exciting to be part of that. But ultimately, we're building a team here from scratch, and how we're going to take our product to market here is something that we're obviously working on.
So what's interesting about all that in coming to the U.S., and I've seen it, firsthand, when the air-to-water conversation comes up, people are very interested. And when I mean people, I'm talking about lobbyist firms, politicians, but most importantly, executives of the companies that are so reliant on water to manufacture their products and delivering that product healthy to a consumer.
No, absolutely. And I think for air-to-water, because it touches the full spectrum of water, so water historically has been very much controlled at a very high level within government. So there's never been any kind of disruption within water. I think what we can do by offering that new source of water and taking that source of water to exactly where it's required, it's incredibly unique, and we're a first mover in that. But when you become a first mover, there's obviously challenges that are part of that. And whilst we're bringing a new product to market, we're also developing the market.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So obviously the product's already in use and you're having success. Can you give our listeners a little bit of insight of where you're using the product, some of the success stories and the deliverables and outcomes, in this case in the UAE?
Yeah, sure. So our main market is in the UAE. We've developed a customer base in the UAE which ranges from government departments to blue chip corporates through to NGOs and then ultimately to end users as well. And that's been deliberate because we wanted to trial and test and stress test our technology, our products in a range of different environments. But I think if you look at one example of hotels in the Middle East. So hotels in the Middle East use a large amount of plastic bottled water, and they're under pressure to to reduce that consumption. And you're never going to eradicate it completely, and it's always going to be part of that kind of total water solution. But they want to reduce it. So if you think about the ways that a hotel in Dubai, for example, could do that, we started with indoor air-to-water units in communal areas. So you think of a gym, conference areas where there's usually bottled water on offering. Hotels like that, but they want to go beyond that. So they want that total solution. So how can you remove plastic bottled water around the pools, around the beaches, in the hotel rooms, in the restaurants? So what we've done is that we've developed that total solution. So with our standalone units, which are in the communal areas, indoor and outdoor, we also have bottling facilities where we create water on site at the hotel. We bottle that into glass bottles in a highly automated process, and then we offer that to the hotels to go into the hotel rooms, into the lobby bars, into the restaurants. And that's going to be a big driver of the AirWater company's growth going forward by offering that total water solution.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's truly fascinating if you think about going into the hotels that we all stay in the U.S. and what you're doing in the UAE, and then obviously, scaling that to the rest of the world and starting in the United States is you have this hotel that had all this water and using plastic bottles, and now you're creating the water from air, so you're not even using the normal sources of water, and you're eradicating the use of plastic and creating the facilities on site, which saves them money in so many other ways. It's really, really fascinating solution.
Yeah, correct. And it's a totally circular solution as well. So that source of water is obviously humidity, so that's totally circular. The bottles that we use, the glass bottles, are reused, they're washed, and then they're reused. So it's what the hotels want. It's driving that sustainability agenda. It's hitting sustainability targets for those big corporates. But I think the opportunity that we see here in the US is very much driven that most of our customers are big blue chip customers in the Middle East, are European and US companies.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, that's why I say this is a first on Beyond the Bottom Line. We've had, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, some fantastic people that are doing amazing things in the world. However, the opportunity for AirWater Company, this literally is game changing not only from in the UAE, but globally.
Yeah, it is, yeah. And I think when you look at areas now which are facing water scarcity, it's a problem that's going to continue to get worse. Those groundwater reserves, we see coverage every day in the media on those groundwater reserves becoming more and more stressed. Same into Southeast Asia, and you're seeing it in Southern Europe now. With around agriculture in Southern Europe, it's going to become more and more of a pressing issue. And I think that what's exciting for what we offer is we'll be part of that solution going forward. We're not reliant on a great energy transition for our technology to become commercially viable. For us, it's about scaling manufacturing and production so that we can get product into the market as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So now if you're out there and you're listening to the show, you think there's people out there thinking of all the uses of water. This touches everything. Yep. Water touches literally everything.
Yep.
So, Alex, all the use cases for AirWater Company it's going to require some level of discipline to knock down a domino along the way as you scale this. How are you looking at the various use cases and where you start and how you continue so it then cascades across?
No, you're right, Bert. So what we do touches that whole spectrum of water from that micro production of 2 liters a day in your kitchen through to mass production of water. So what we focused on from the start was those large consumers of plastic bottled water who are under pressure to reduce that consumption. That's where we've put all of our effort to date. In the future, what we want to do is move across that spectrum of water. So we've started working with consumers, and then ultimately we want to work towards how we can produce water at scale at a cost that's comparable to desalination, but doing that totally sustainably. And that's not a distant dream. That's something that with the right resource we could do within the next 12 months. We have a number of projects underway for air-to-water units, which are powered by solar. It's about scaling that and then ultimately finding locations that require that water.
So when you think about the scale, the mass scale and use of water, of using beverage companies as an example. And it's on record where we have some of our major adult supplier organizations, the top one in the world, which we all know. They're concerned about how they're going to use water and then continuing to develop their products. And it's a big issue they've been talking to about this. So are you saying there is the possibility in the not too distant future that there could be water farms to help sustain some of these major suppliers to create the water and use water, and maybe not replace all of what they're currently using, but certainly, be able to implement the water farms that works alongside those?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So and it's not just the beverage industry, it's a range of industries that obviously consume a large amount of water. And it's only now becoming more of an issue that's starting to be addressed. But when you think of what your options are, if you're using groundwater now, how do you change that source of water? Unless you can move location to an area which has ample groundwater reserves, and those countries are pretty limited, you have to start looking at new solutions, and that's ultimately going to be driven by new technologies.
Right, but even if that were the case, there's still a level of responsibility. These brands, agriculture brands, food brands, beverage brands, and other types of manufacturers, there's a level of responsibility a pressure that's being put on them as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you can address that by water farms. And as I said earlier, that's a mass production of water using air to water, powered by solar. So you're producing water totally off grid where it's required, in the scale that it's required.
It's amazing. It's fantastic. And when I think about where when you came out of your career and you went into finance, as you said, many of you do, and you land, and in 2018 you found the AirWater company, and you've continued to obviously invest your time, your emotion, and your money into developing this company. It's pretty fascinating. All right, you talked about the United States. You want to build the team in the United States, and as the next big step, that's going to require talent. So let's talk about talent for a second. As you look at your organization today, and as you look forward to and provide a lens to your organization in the future, talk to us about the kind of team you want to build. What's that look like? I'm not talking about talent and experiences. I'm talking about the overall finding everybody to get in a common mission. And what does that look like? The kind of people you're looking to put around you.
Yeah, so we've got a very diverse team now. So I think we've got 15 different nationalities within the team at the moment. The UAE is a bit of a melting pot for lots of different countries and lots of different cultures, which is great. But for us, it comes down to three things that we focus on when we're building a team. It's communication, it's expectation. So if you can get the communication right with the team, and then you can build on what's expected from each individual, and then what's expected from the team, you can then work towards that common vision. And for us, that common vision is to be the most sustainable water company in the world. And that's a vision that it's very easy to get people behind.
Yeah,
it's what all of us should be trying to achieve, right, outside of business.
That's not a hard sell if it can be executed, right? And now you're proven already in the UAE that it can be executed. What is interesting, though, and I want to dive into this piece because the team is not that big. You founded it in 2018. You're only 5 years old. You had to go through the hurdles of creating the technology and to deliver the high quality water. You now have 10 products, 10 physical products from the 5 liter all the way to, what's the 3,000 liter. So, yeah, and everything in between. You've been able to create that technology, manufacture the products, deliver the products, prove out the products. Still have stock in place, so it's not like you're making them as you go. You're creating a company. How have you been able to do that with such a small team?
So when you look at the AirWater company today, we've got an excellent engineering team. We've essentially been an engineering company. What we've done, as I said, is trial tested, had feedback from kind of corporates on what they require from air to water units that are producing water for them. So it's really much been an engineering focus in everything that we've done. I think, as I said to you, up until 3 weeks ago, we didn't really have a website. We've just gone through a rebrand. But getting that shop window in place now and kind of stepping out of the shadows and start telling people exactly what we can do is now the exciting part. So I think when you come back to to our existing talent and attracting talent. I think now that we can be more vocal about what we're doing, the problems that we're solving for a multitude of different end users is exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, it's really an engineering company. When you think about when Uber came to the market, it was not a taxi company, it's a tech company, right?
Yep.
Or Airbnb is not a hotel company, it's a tech company. And if you think about AirWater company, technically it's not water, although we're creating water, it's really an engineering organization.
Yeah, that's right. And we've been very fortunate in building that excellent engineering team, led by Dave Cupid, who was an early co-founder with us. And he's been instrumental in building that engineering team and ultimately delivering product where it's needed.
Yeah, truly fantastic. So I have a question. There's so much I want to talk. I mean, I could talk for, an hour about this, but the question I always like to end on is everybody I talk to, there's always that person or persons that really impact them, that create the influence, whether it be who we are, our temperament, our drive to go create something. Who's been that? I mean, the one person that's truly influenced you personally and professionally?
I think it's a blend, isn't it? That if there's one individual that's influenced you personally, they've probably influenced you professionally as well. So I think for me, it would be close to home. Probably my wife. I've known my wife literally my whole life. So my wife, because she's being a big enabler in allowing me to do what we're doing now. So my wife and my father, my parents as well, they created an environment for us which was full of stability. And I think when you have stability at home, it makes those career choices just that little bit easier to make. So the environment for me that family provides or your home life provides, I think that stability, and stability can mean different things to different people, right?
Yeah. It's truly amazing the support system that people have to have and successful people have. And the people, I say this in an all respectful way, the people behind you that support you and hold you up and prop up a person that's trying to really do something fantastic and change the world in your case is necessary.
Yeah, because they enable it. They're a big enabler in allowing us to do what we're doing.
Well, thank you for being on the show, Alex. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Bert. It's been great.
Absolutely. So it is a first, and we'll have him on again, I assure you, because this is progressing down the road, and there's some exciting things happening for the AirWater company in the next few months. And I think, Alex, as you said, AirWater company is going to be coming out of the shadows in not only in the way of marketing and through the digital platform and other things, but there's also some great market information that's going to happen here in the U.S. that we'll put on the next show. But this is a first in that all the great people we've had on the show. Remember Alex Guy, AirWater company, literally creating a technology through his engineering team, taking thin air, making it high quality drinking water, which literally can change the world. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Bert.
Absolutely. This is Beyond the Bottom Line. I'm your host, Bert Miller. Until next time, talk to you then.